Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. Okay, so today I am just going to be talking about 3 of the books that I have recently read and just telling you what I thought about them. So I always like I always feel like I have to explain these videos that are like different than I've done or than other people done, but like I want to talk about the books while they're still fresh in my brain. I struggle by the time the end of the month comes. Literally all I'm giving you is just like, I liked it, this 3 stars. And like, I don't like to talk about books like that because it's boring, right? Moriarty to Sherlock, you're boring. Anyway, okay, so I have 3 books to talk about today. And the first one I want to talk about is one that I just happened across on Kindle Unlimited. It is Almost Maybes by Anna P. This is her debut book, and I was excited about this based off of the premise, which is basically this is an Indian American woman who is like 36 or 37, and she is bisexual, and she has had relationships in the past that have really like hurt her, so she's kind of the type of woman right now in her life where she's just looking for like a night, a weekend, you know, a sexual fling type of thing. And then she meets the hero, who is 10 years younger than her, and he is a bit of a geek. He calls himself that. He, you know, loves Ninja Turtles, loves Star Wars and things like that, and he's a graphic designer. And he's very much aware of, like, the nerdy type of things that he likes because women in his past have made him feel like that. And he's just convinced he's never going to meet anybody who's going to, like, accept him for what he is. And they end up meeting at a bar where Ollie Oleander is her name, where she works, and from the minute that Jackson, from the minute that Jackson sees her, he is like so completely smitten with her, just thinks she is the most beautiful woman, and she's plus size too, did I mention that? He's just like overwhelmed with desire for her and thinks she's just beautiful, and then they have a few interactions where he like sees this fire in her that he finds just very attractive and appealing, and it was just so fun, and I really liked the setup of that. So I was curious what the plot was going to be because we know that like Ollie has some past history with an abusive boyfriend, and that Jackson is coming off of heartbreak. He's been cheated on, and the woman that he thought he was going to marry and loved like completely betrayed him and kind of blindsided him that way. And so I was thinking that was where the conflict was going to be for this romance, but it really truly wasn't. That was something that they got over pretty early in their relationship, even though it kind of came back in bits and pieces as the book was unfolding. But the conflict in this book is all about an interaction that Ollie has with Jackson's sister when he takes her to meet his family. It was this interaction that the two of them had, the sister and Ollie, where the sister was basically telling Ollie, you know, you're not good enough for Jackson, because really racist, derogatory slurs it was just awful. But it also, I felt like it came out of nowhere in the book because we've never met this sister before. We don't know anything about her. Jackson has never given any indication that he is racist at all. He's just a wonderful man. And so the conflict is really about her breaking up with Jackson, essentially, because, you know, some things that Jackson did where she felt like he wasn't, like, defending her. This is bothering me, how this piece of hair is poking out. And so Jackson takes some time to reflect on, is he racist? Is he have this unintentional bias because he's a white man who hasn't grown up around other races or cultures? And he realizes that yes, he does, and then they end up working things out. But I realize I just spoiled the whole third act breakup for you, but that's a major reason why I didn't enjoy this book fully. I think that this book started out with the promise of being a 5-star read for me. I was like very excited about the whole premise of this, and I was very excited about how the author was writing these characters, and she did such a good job of showing them falling in love in a way that felt so realistic, like that feeling of being in a new relationship, of meeting somebody that you click with, that you have chemistry and a connection with. She captured that so well, and I really liked how developed the characters were. I felt like they had good backstory, and I felt like they were very full-fleshed individual on the page. You know, they were well-rounded characters that you could root for and love, and that had flaws, and they were just really great in that way. And also this book did something that I feel like I don't read a lot of, and that is like she shows you him courting her, basically. So they go on dates and he plans these dates, and it's all just so sweet and romantic, and she really truly captured that falling in love feeling so well. And from the minute I opened this book, the author has a note, and she's talking about all of the things that she's going to be writing with, sort of like a content warning page. It is a content warning page. And, you know, she lists fat phobia, homophobia, racism, and things like that. And so I knew she was going to be approaching all of these topics in there. And I don't think that that is ever a bad thing to include at all. I'm not saying that at all. But I do personally feel like the way that the third act conflict went down, it was just... It literally came out of nowhere. It was too on the nose. It was very didactic because it was so clear this was a moment for Jackson to have a teaching life experience. And I feel like that could have been incorporated if she wanted to really tackle those themes. And I think that, you know, that is absolutely wonderful. Some of my favorite books tackle those themes. I always want that to be done in an organic way that adds to the story, that isn't just this manufactured conflict to get your message across. So that was so deeply disappointing to me, the way that that was handled, that I ended up giving this book 3 stars. But again, I just absolutely loved how she wrote their chemistry and their romance, and I wish that that third act conflict, those heavy themes and topics that she wanted to address and talk about, I wish they had been incorporated in a more organic way into the story. Like, if we had met the sister before, if she had foreshadowed a little bit that she was racist, that then Ollie and her were going to have this big blow up, that would have been fine. That would have been perfect. That would have been a really good moment to show Jackson was unaware of these racist tendencies that he had. But because of the way that it just absolutely came out of nowhere, it just felt like, it felt just too didactic. It felt exactly like that. It was a book with a message with a capital M, you know, and you know how I feel about that. So I do want to read more from this author, because I think she really caught the feeling of falling in love really, really well. And truthfully, I feel like we don't have a lot of books like that. I feel like the way that some authors try to write romance just falls so flat for me. And I felt like this author had such a good balance of the falling in love, the spark, the chemistry, the attraction, the desire, the steam, all of that was so well balanced. And I mean, there were, again, like, this is her debut, so some of the writing, even though she does, I believe in her author bio, it says she has a master's in creative writing, there were still some newbie writing mistakes she was making that I see newbie authors make quite often. But I'm not going to penalize her for that, because this was her debut and it was really quite good. But the whole romance, the whole book a romance hinges on the third act conflict. What's it going to do? And I just needed it to not be didactic and not to come out of nowhere. We need some type of foreshadowing in this specific situation that's going to show us how this resulted in them breaking up. So anyway, 3 stars. I do want to read more from her for sure. Okay, and then I read Slave to Sensation by Neilani Singh. So this is actually the second book by Neilani Singh I have read before. I read Angel's Blood, which I believe is whatever the title of the first book in her Guild Hunter series is. I've read that one. And I had a sort of similar reading experience. I gave that book 3 stars. This one I gave 4 stars, and I definitely like this one better. This was so well done. Like, the thing that really wowed me about this book is the world. The world building, the world setup, the opening prologue that tells you what the silence is for the Psy, how the Psy were like serial killers and prone to violence, and so they initiate this silence, which is going to get them to suppress any violent anger, rage that they may have, but also all of their other feelings as well. And then you contrast that with these shifters, the changelings, who are so emotion-based. I felt like that was such a clever, well done, smart, just loved that setup so much. I just adored it. So I think, like, this setup for this is so excellent. The world is really very clever. It's also very easy to get into. I think the world building in here is smart, and it's very well done, but it never ever feels like there's this big barrier, like it's hard to understand the world. And I think that partly comes from the way this is a blend of like an urban fantasy type of thing. We're in an urban setting, and we also have this fantastical world elements in there, so that makes it very much more easy to feel engaged with and relate to, and I really, truly loved that. Like, I can't say enough about the good things of the world building in this book. It was just fantastic. I can't wait to read more from this series. I think I've heard that they just get better and better. Jessin was just telling me the other day that like book 3 is where it really takes off for her. This book was fantastic. I really, really liked it. I think that the way that the romance is set up with, you know, is he like the pride leader? I'm not entirely sure what they call him. He is Lucas. He's trying to find who's killing these changeling women and members of his like pride or pact. I'm not sure what you would call it. I can't even remember. But so he goes to the Psy to try and figure out, they believe that one of the Psy is doing that. So that's when he meets Sasha, and she's going to they're going to work together to solve this mystery, this murder, basically. And I loved the chemistry that they had. I loved how intrigued with her he was. I loved how, you know, Sasha is this character who presents this stone cold shield of ice that nobody is going to penetrate or get through. I mean, and she has to, because she's a Psy. Like, if she, you know, if she's not able to convince others or to not feel any emotion, then it's going to be bad for her, you know? But I really loved how they had their connection. I thought it was really powerful. I really liked they have a sequence of dreams where both of them aren't quite sure if they're actually happening, where they're able to be together in their dreams, which I thought was like chef's kiss. Very well done. Excellent. It created so much tension and chemistry between them when they were interacting like in real life, but it also helped progress their romance forward really well. I thought that was awesome. I just really enjoyed the first half of this. I thought it was fantastic, and I was like, this is going to be a 5-star read. I freaking love this so much. But then, as can sometimes happen, once they actually have sex, then all of that tension just completely dissolved. So when that happens, and this is also a common complaint of mine, this happens in historical romances too, a lot. I mean, in other romances too, but I notice it a lot in historical romances. Once that happens, when they actually have sex and that tension is gone, then the author tries to bring something else in to create that sense of tension so you still want to keep reading, right? Because if you're reading a romance and they're together, why do you want to keep reading? If you know, for most readers, that's what's keeping us reading, is how are they going to get together? Even though you know they're going to get together, you still want to know the how. So that happened again in here, and once that tension was gone, I also noticed a shift in Sasha's character. She became much less independent, much less fierce. She seemed to really weaken a lot. And Lucas definitely, as you know, as is also common in books that have mates or fated mates type of thing, like, he is wildly protective of her, and that protective bleeds out into a possessiveness of her. And that's not, I don't know that that's the right word, where he just doesn't want anything to happen to her, so he kind of takes over, whereas she was really an independent, strong woman before that. So I think that it's understandable how it happens in a mated book, a fated mates type of thing, but I still was disappointed because she was such a bad A, and she does have some redemption for her bad A-ness towards the end, but that tension just sort of dissolved, and then we were relying on plot things to keep us going, and truthfully, it was the perfect blend of those things that was making this such an enjoyable read for me. How the plot, the tension there, the mystery was at equal pace with the romance and how they're going to get together. And I think specifically because this was such an interesting setup, and there were so many things that was like, they can't be together because of this, or they shouldn't be, like, it was so dangerous for them to be together. That forbidden element was just, like, addictive. And then it was all gone, and I was disappointed. So I really enjoyed this. I wish that that balance had been maintained further throughout the end of the book. I honestly would have rather had them not even actually get together until, like, maybe right before the end. Because once that tension was over, my interest in this was really, really dropping, and I felt like that affected the story on a big level. So I think something that isn't talked about a lot in romance reviews is how sex affects pacing. That's a pacing element, and it's often used midway through. Like I was saying, that's what's keeping you reading, is you want to see them getting together. So once that happens, then the pace can really go down if something doesn't replace it. For most readers, I know a lot of readers really enjoy seeing their couple happy. I prefer to see them not happy. I don't need to see them happy for half of the book, you know? Like, I want to have this tension, this mystery, this will they, won't they. I want that to be prolonged, which is another reason why I'm not a huge fan of, like, just nonstop sex, because there's no tension there. I need that tension to keep me reading. So I do think that that was a choice that she made, and I know that it's going to be a fan favorite for a lot of readers who want that type of comforting experience, but it did affect the pacing of this book a lot, and it also affected the characters, which is reasonable, right? I would expect sex to affect the characters for sure. So gave this one 4 stars, really enjoyed it, definitely want to continue reading. Okay, now the next book that I want to talk about is Next to You by Hannah Bonam-Young. So this is a book that was recommended to me by Zay, and it is a contemporary romance, and I have really, really, really been enjoying the heck out of the contemporary romances that I've been reading. Ever since I picked up The Right Move, that was the one that was like, yes, this is the type of contemporary romance that I want, that is romantic and swoony and has great characters, really great writing, but also has some things that the characters are working with, you know? And that's also why I liked Almost Maybes, because it had those type of things too. So I was very excited about this one. Zay recommended it to me last year. I think she read an arc and she was like, you're gonna like this a lot. And I did really enjoy this. I gave this book 4 stars. It wasn't quite a 5-star for me. There were a few issues that I had with this, but overall, this is basically the story of our heroine, who I think she's like 27. She is struggling with anxiety. I believe she's also bisexual. I've read like 2 of those back to back, so I think that yeah, she's bisexual, but that isn't really a part of the story in here, but it's mentioned. And she's really struggling even 10 years later with the grief of losing her father, and how that has affected her so deeply that sometimes it really affects her ability to function and to have relationships with others. She has a lot of complicated feelings about the way that he died and her involvement with it that really have impacted her in ways that she's struggling to deal with and to live with. So she ends up meeting our hero Matt one night at a New Year's Eve party, and they end up having this amazing chemistry and the best kiss. Like, I think she even describes it as one of the best kisses she's ever had. The best kiss she's ever had in her entire life, where she just felt like there was something different about this man and this connection that they had, and it was so great. I was really, really loving it. I was really loving the prologue. And then we have, like, the chapter ends, and then it's something like 15 months later. So the chapter ends with their kiss, and then she leaves him, and then you have this time jump of 15 months later, and then we enter back into their life, and they're not together, and they never dated, and I was just like, what happened? Why? You know? So for a large part of the book, I was really curious about why the author did that. Why would she just have this opening scene that shows you they have chemistry, they have connection, and then completely skip so much time? And look, I'm honestly a fan of time jumps. I think that they're really effective at creating a feeling of soulmate sweeping romance, which I love. But you need to at least give me some type of context for maybe what happened in the time jump, you know, between our couple specifically. And I don't really feel like we got that here. It was just implied that that kiss was like the end, and they never dated or anything, but you can tell that he, specifically Matt, has strong feelings for her, and she's like the type of heroine that is like constantly pushing him away and doesn't want to acknowledge that maybe she has feelings for him too, all relating back to the loss of her father, of course. And so she was a difficult character for me because not only is she quirky with a capital Q, like everything about her is quirky, and whenever she's confronted with feelings, or not feelings, whenever she's confronted with an opportunity to speak her feelings, or to actually, when someone's asking her, specifically Matt, how she feels or what she thinks, she deflects that with like some quirky type of humor. Like, that's sort of a character trait that she has, and it happened like over and over, and I was getting very annoyed with this heroine. I was just like, I don't understand, first of all, because I didn't really know at that point what had happened in her past. It was hinted at, but I didn't really know how deeply it affected her or how it could. I had a hard time feeling empathetic with her and really understanding why she consistently pushed this man away and why she was constantly like deflecting and not giving him a chance. And I was just like, look, he's perfect, so why are you acting like this with him? He just loves you. And then that also begs the question of, why was he so interested in her? Like, why was he so head over heels in love with her? I never fully, even at the end of the book, felt like I understood why he loved her so much, when their relationship to me throughout the entire book seemed not reciprocal at all. Like, he would extend himself over and over again with declarations, with words, with acts, you know, like he was consistently showing her how he felt for her. And she was constantly like pushing him back and pushing him away and not accepting it. Or if she did, it would just be like, you know, this is just a physical thing, that's all it is. So I think that was really what kept it from being a 5 for me, was just that I felt like their relationship wasn't balanced. There was, even though the ending, she overcomes that, and what causes their breakup really allows her a chance to work on herself and to, you know, get herself in order. And I liked that, but it still never felt fully reciprocal to me. And it's just really hard for me to absolutely love a romance when I feel like it's unbalanced in that way. If one person is going to the extreme for the others and there's not some type of extenuating circumstances, which I can understand why that's happening. And maybe it is just because I wasn't fully sympathetic with her trauma, you know, I mean, and that very well could be, because this has definitely happened in other books that I've read, and I feel a lot of kinship with the heroine because I can exactly understand the trauma that has caused her to behave the way that she is. And maybe that's just, this is a case of, I had a hard time relating with her because I found little in common with her. I don't know. I try, honestly, to never really look at my characters that way. I'm never like self-inserting myself into romance. I'm always just sort of observing and seeing, does this character feel real? Does this feel like a real relationship? Does it feel like these two are meant to be? Which is such a ginormous ask for authors to convey. I mean, like, that's huge. And I do feel like that wasn't the case here for me. I didn't really fully believe that a man like that, who had so much love to give and was just giving it so freely, I just don't know that I ever felt like she deserved him, you know? So anyway, and then the final thing, in the very last prologue, like pages until the end, there was something introduced that I so badly wish had not been introduced, and it honestly made me so mad that I almost wanted to give this book 2 stars, but I didn't. I gave it 4 stars. But I'm going to tell you what that is. It is a trigger warning, but it also could be a spoiler, even though it happens on the last page. So if you don't want to know, then just click out. This is the last book I'm talking about. But it is mentioned in the last few pages of this book. It is known that the heroine is possibly not ever going to be able to get pregnant. So infertility was both introduced and resolved within just a few pages of this book. And why was that added? What was the point of that? There was no reason to add that into this book unless she plans to do another book with them, which maybe she does. So anyway, I really liked the author's writing style. I thought it was really solid. She did have a few ticks of words that she would repeat, phrases she would repeat, but all authors do that. And I do want to read more from her because I liked this. I just hope that in future books, I feel like that balance is hit a little more perfectly for me. So really enjoyed that. All right, thank you so much for listening to me talk about these 3 books. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've made it this far, please feel free to leave me a purple heart because I got a purple hoodie on, and I'll see you in my next one.